One of the things I wanted to point out is that we observe every day. A couple of you did your observations over at the Union, and you talked a lot about how the different races sit together. And you talked a lot about how technology seems to have taken over our lives because people are sitting together and they're on their phones. And I thought, yeah, I've noticed that. Well, I just went over and got lunch, and as I was walking through, I made a note to observe what I was seeing. Not one person talking. Every single person, and there were probably 30 people in there. I looked around, and then just a quick scan, and it's pretty easy. 30 people on their iPhones or on their computers or napping. One couple sitting at a table, I mean, I don't know if they're boyfriend, girlfriend, or what, but she's sitting there texting, and he's got his earbuds in, and he's flipping through, and I'm thinking, we have lost the ability to communicate. And I realize I'm at that age now.
In a certain way, they're communicating.
Yes, they are. You're right. I realize I've reached that age where I can say back in my day, when I was a student, you know, and things are going to change, and things are going to evolve. And we may realize we reach a saturation point where enough of this, just put this thing away and let's talk. Let's just be together in the moment. We aren't there yet. Jeff?
Well, that has to leave before it can become new again. You know what I mean? So it really is cyclical, and it has to go away almost completely before it's the new thing, even though it's not the new thing.
Yeah, it's going to have to go somewhere. I mean, when Bum and Jeff and I were kids, what did we listen to? iPods. Or, not iPods. Walkmans.
You don't like when you were kids?
Or boomboxes.
Not that.
What big boomboxes?
I was more like this. I'm way older than you.
No, we had the boomboxes.
You didn't have a transistor radio?
I had transistor.
I had a transistor. Okay, that's how we listened to the ball game and things. But then we had the Walkman. Well, the Walkman went away, and it wasn't there for a while. And a lot of people were saying that our generation was going to be deaf as a post because we had these things on, where our parents listened to a record player. Okay, you know what a record is, right?
No. Yeah, no.
Okay. Vinyl. They would listen to a record player. Well, now we had these Walkmans and we had these headphones on. It wasn't the earbuds, it was the headphone that came over your head. And we were listening to those all the time, and so we were going to go deaf. And then they went away for a while. And then the iPod came along. And then eventually the iPhone and all of that. So,
And the earbuds came, and now what's back is
the big
Beats.
headphones. I was thinking about that this
They're
morning.
back.
The big headphones that we had are back. So
They had to go away to be cool again.
Do you
That's
have
right.
your old pair?
Do what?
Do you have your old pair
Old pair of headphones?
when they were cool the first time?
No, I do not.
Oh.
Those are
And
the way
you
I-
know-
Bring them back, dust them off.
Listening to classic music on vinyl is starting to become
That's
vogue
starting to come
again,
back.
too.
Yep.
Sound is really
It's
good.
crazy.
Yeah, because you get the popping and the crackling of the music. Yeah, it's different now. Okay. But you observe these things, and you observe how things have changed. And we observe our surroundings. We observe the way people interact with one another. Jeff made a great observation coming in today. My gosh, you guys have been out here doing this bake sale all week. They have been sitting literally outside this room. I feel like I'm assaulted every time I come to class and I leave class. I imagine you going back and forth from your office get it constantly.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we observe every day. Critics will say that it's too subjective. Why do you think that is? Critics of observation as a way of gathering data say it's too subjective.
Because you're only observing through your lens.
So you're only looking through your lens, okay? But wouldn't all of us, as we went over there to the union, wouldn't we all observe that everybody was on their phone?
All might observe also that everybody has on pants. That is so ubiquitous and part of things we don't even make a point to notice it. So the lens to see that people are doing that means it's catching our attention.
Okay.
And you made the observation that everyone was on their phone, and then you followed it up with, we don't communicate anymore. But I still see it as communication, just a different type of communication.
Maybe this couple was on Skype, but talking to each other using phone.
Across the table.
Hello, can you hear me?
Just to play with technology. Maybe, I just read an article before I came into class for my sports writing class, talking about how sports journalism has changed, and it's changed because of technology and all the cybermetrics and things like that. If you're baseball fans, you hear about WAR, wins against replacement.
Yep.
That never was around whenever I was a kid, or when I was covering baseball, but now that's there, and so
That's
we're
not
thinking
good.
about how do we communicate with our audiences. There was a study I read this summer talking about when you go to a ball game now, that and if you've ever been to Kauffman Stadium, or I don't know if they do it in Busch, I've only been to Busch a couple of times, but at Kauffman Stadium, you're constantly being asked to tweet. Here, at our games, when they do the blackout games, they're asking you to tweet because they want to hear the conversation. They want to get people communicating about the game and talking that way. So I may be over on one side of the arena and somebody else may be on the other, and we could be talking about what we're seeing. They do contests through these things. So it may just be that that's just become so much ingrained in who we are that we have to have it all the time. So that's an observation you can make.
I wonder if they're, especially on the, line drive foul zone areas, if there's been an increase in serious injury, because traditionally in the old school way, you watched the game because you knew a bat, a ball, anything could come flying into the stands. So if you didn't watch every single pitch, you were at risk. And I've noticed, and I sit behind, my season tickets are behind the screen on the first row, so I can't really be hit by a foul ball. But I've noticed people taking shots that probably
Usually
didn't
wouldn't.
happen when I was younger because they're more in tune to what's going on in front of them. But now they're like, whack! They're like looking at their phone and then take one off the noggin. And or someone will say, oh, and they'll look up and then it's too late, it's already there.
And so we're using that technology, and so as observers, what are we looking at? What are they doing? Well, are they just on their phone, they're disinterested, but they're there at the game because they're with their family? Are they trying to get involved in a contest, so we need to observe, did something just happen? Are they getting together and taking a selfie?
Right.
My family went to the Warrensburg Highsmith Cotton game the other day, and these three girls in front of us were going back and forth taking selfies at the game. I don't think they even knew there was a game going on. I kept waiting for my youngest son, who's the master photo bomber, to jump in the middle of their picture. Okay, but you're observing these types of things, so we observe human interaction. We observe the way people interact with one another, the way that they perform their life or their duties and live their lives. And another thing about observation is it can help us prepare for future interviews. Why is that?
Are you talking like a?
Let's just kind of stay on this train. We're talking about, I didn't mean for this to get off on the topic of using cell phones, but it works. Makes for a good example. Leah?
Because there's so much more involved in an interview than just them answering the questions. This is why I prefer to do interviews in person than over the phone, but sometimes I have to for the paper. But when I do an interview in person, I can see where they're uncomfortable or uncertain. I can see whether they're a reliable source, if they're answering confidently or not. And then
Yeah, what is it? If you're looking up to the left, you're using the creative side. No.
Logical process.
Looking down to the left is lying.
That's complete bogus.
all of it. Thank you. I agree. I think that.
I agree too. I'm just going with the wives' tale. I think it was looking up to the left, you're lying. Looking up to the right, you're trying to remember.
That's still being taught in interpersonal communication here.
That if you look up to the left,
Yes.
Yeah.
to watch for that sort of thing.
I know, it's been refuted and proven to be just bogus, and yet we're teaching it here at this college.
But anyway, I think you can
I'm not
get
going to
more.
talk about what somebody else is teaching.
Not on camera anymore.
Yeah, on air.
You can
Young
get a
boy,
more
slow down.
fulfilling interview though, if it's in person and you can pick up on all the nonverbals, you can see where they emphasize something. It's also easier to get more rapport, I suppose, with the person you're interviewing because they see. The media is still made up of people, and when they realize it's not just this powerful force that's out to get me, this is just a regular person just like me, they're more comfortable with confiding in you, with saying, oh, but this is off the record, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, I'm speaking purely from my journalistic background, not,
Which is fine. I mean, that's.
but, But I mean, I don't know about stuff that's off the record for research projects, you know, if I was gonna be a subject for research to be interviewed, I would never, ever, ever say anything that would be, you know, I want this off the record, you know, because that's just dumb. For a
Well, when you get-
report, it
when-
makes sense, a story.
When you're doing an
is,
interview in journalism and somebody says something off the record, it's just to give you some background information that, okay, I can go follow up on this. I'm not gonna publish it, I'm not gonna put your name to it, it's so I can go follow up on it.
Right,
Well, that's the essence of research, is we're trying to dig up this information and follow up.
okay,
But by observing, again, it helps us develop further interviews, because I may be thinking, I wanna do a study on college students and their use of technology.
Right.
And so I need to observe in surroundings where there's gonna be a lot of college students, and how are they using the technology? Okay, Kristen's got her laptop up. Is she surfing Facebook? Is she tweeting? Is she working on another class? I don't trust you. Is she working on another class project, or is she using it for taking notes? Okay. I feel really self-conscious in a meeting. I'll pull my cell phone out and I'll start typing on it, and I know people think I'm texting. I have a real problem in our department meetings when colleagues will pull their cell phones out and I know they're texting, or I'll look over and they'll have their computer up and they're on Facebook. And yet they get really livid when students do it.
Yeah, that's,
So I make it a personal policy that I will not surf the internet, I will not text whenever I am in a meeting. The only time I will is if I'm supposed to pick up the kids and the meeting went longer and I text my wife, can't get the kids, can you get them? But I take notes on my cell phone. If my iPad is dead, I take my notes on my cell phone. Okay, so are they using it for that? Or are they just totally disinterested? Because your generation can multitask like nobody's business. You can be working on your homework while listening to the radio. I can say they do it well. Can be watching a movie, doing homework, while carrying on a conversation via text or Instagram or Twitter or whatever.
And eating.
And eating. Okay, my daughter got so mad at me one night because she was supposed to be doing her homework and she had a movie going on her Kindle, and we were watching television at the same time. And I said, "You need to put your Kindle away." She goes, "Why?" I said, "You're doing your homework." Well, she went stomping downstairs. "You're on the computer watching TV where you're working all the time." And my first reaction was, "You're doing your homework. That's much more important than my work." My second reaction was, "Don't you ever talk about me like that." When I can hear it.
Don't you be right in front of me.
Shame on you for being right. But again, we will observe these interactions, and first of all, we need to observe to see, are they on their technology, and if so, how much? So it's helping us to develop those questions. Yeah, they are, so we know, okay, what kind of questions do I ask? It helps us develop that part of it.
My granddaughter is in second grade, and their whole class is based on technology. They're issued an iPad. Every student's issued an iPad. It's a new program in Liberty called EPIC. I don't know what the acronym stands for, but it has a meaning. And so when they come in, they're handed an iPad. So she carries this around, and in class they'll ask questions, and they're encouraged to go find the answers. They're, like right then and there. I've went up to an open house with them, and it's amazing. And they'll give the teachers will give them an assignment, and they'll immediately just start working with partners. It's all collaborative, technology-driven educational program that she'll have all the way through elementary school. She was selected by the district to be a participant in that. I thought, holy cow! I mean, it's pretty amazing the way you think about future education, future think forward.
And again, there's something for us to observe. Why is there a difference in the generations of how much they use it and how they use it? My 10-year-old is very creative, loves to build stuff, loves Legos. We bought him a Christmas present where there's this app that goes on your iPad that he can build something with his Legos, take a picture of it, and then manipulate it like you do Minecraft on the computer. Coolest thing I've ever seen. I can't even begin to figure out how it works. But he's just, "Oh, that's easy, Dad. Look," puts it together, click, and starts fooling around with it. I'm like, what the heck? So you're looking for observations then of, okay, is there a difference in the ages? So then you start observing, how old are they? How old do they appear to be? And that's part of why it's subjective. Because how old do you think I am? Don't say 50. Do
21.
not say 50.
27.
Oh, you always say 21.
21. And what's 9 plus 10?
But you know what I'm saying, it's
43?
45. It's hard to tell with some people how old they are, so trying to figure that out. But it can be subjective. You can look at it and say, well, they're not communicating. Well, actually, they are communicating. They're maybe working on a homework problem together, but they're using their cell phones for it. Okay, and you just didn't catch them talking at that time. So it's important to build up these observational skills. Now, very few of us will ever get to this point. Can you get the lights for me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah.
I love him.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Your governance.
Well done.
Yes, well done. Shall we?
Waiter.
Your student. Spoilgate.
Charlie's 7, actually.
Finished tall for his age. He fled Lincolnshire today.
Is there ink on my face?
There's nothing wrong with your face. There are 2 drops on your earnings hat. Enable is nearly impossible torture. Anyway, very impetuous, married by the boy, but you're too experienced to react rashly, which is why the lady for whom you worked lent you that necklace. Oriental pearls, diamonds, flawless ruby, Hartley, the gems, the governors. However, the jewels you are not wearing tennis not the more. Holmes, you were engaged. The ring is gone with the lighter skin that it once had. Suggests that you spent some time abroad wearing it proudly. That is until you were informed of its true and other modest worth, at which point you broke off the engagement and returned to England for better prospects. Doctor.
I didn't anticipate that.
Man, he got wrecked.
Whoa, what the hell's wrong with her?
Why would you waste perfectly good alcohol?
No, throwing things at people just because of words. That's violence. That's just wrong, buddy.
Okay.
At least the glass didn't break over.
In case you hadn't noticed, I'm a huge Sherlock Holmes fan. Already been through the BBC Sherlock Holmes episode once. I'm going through it a second time because they're not bringing it back till 2016 and what is wrong with English television.
Don't even get me
But
started.
it's because I'm fascinated by his observational skills and how he has the science of deduction down to a science. Now, I know it's a fictional character, but it's just really, really cool. Okay? So, the things we wanted to talk about today is what do we observe? Well, the first thing we're going to observe is the physical setting, or the sub-settings. Why is that relevant? Why do we need to observe that?
Because they affect how people behave in
Yeah.
different,
They
behave
affect-
differently in different environments.
They affect how they behave or how they should behave. You think about if you go to a restaurant and you observe. You have the back of the house where the cooks are. Okay? They should behave in one way. Then you have kind of the front of the house where the greeters are, the cashier people are. They should behave in one way. Then you have the dining room where you have families, you have patrons, you have waiters and waitresses. They behave a certain way. So you observe the physical setting and then the sub-settings, the back of the house, front of the house, the dining room. And in part you're doing that so you can see, okay, and you go with your preconceived notions of what do we expect for the way they behave. Do they follow that notion? Do they behave the way we expect them to? And the people that we're looking at are the participants or the actors. The actors in our little play. Because what are we observing? Interaction, communication in our field.
The physical setting is important in a practical sense for marketing and promotion and so forth, sales in general.
Why?
Well,
You're right. Why?
it was observed that people are impulse buyers, so they put all of the trinkets near the cash
Don't
register.
you hate that?
Yeah, because you're drawn to them, and so that's there very strategically and on purpose. but it was based on observations. And they send you to the back of the store for all the things, the staples, because then you have to work your way out of the store so the milk is always in the back, because that's a staple, and you have to work your way from the back to the front. So knowing all this stuff, I just go like this. I go in and out.
So from a marketing perspective, you're observing how the actors interact,
With the
in the
physical
setting.
space, yes.
okay? That's what you're trying to see. Because then we know how to structure the store. We know where to place particular items. Okay?
Have you ever seen, because of the work I do with alcohol prevention, I watch Bar Rescue all the time, with John Taffer. And he invented a thing called the butt funnel that puts two bars in juxtaposed from one another, so there's a small entrance. So it forces interaction with the patrons, because if a conversation strikes up, the patrons are likely to spend 4 more hours and equaling X number of dollars in additional drinks and or food. And it's strategically located so that when you're going from one place to another, you have to pass and either make eye contact, or if you turn, you're going to make physical butt contact by the name butt funnel. And I was just like blown away by that. And I'm like, who observes that stuff? And who's sitting over there making the notes?
Yeah.
And how does it equate to actual dollars and extra drinks bought and so forth? But somebody obviously has.
So from a marketing perspective, you're observing for those reasons, to figure out how you structure the bar or the restaurant or the grocery store. From a research perspective, again, you're observing these sorts of things to help you develop your questions, to help you have some sort of data to go on when you're talking about human interaction. Okay, this is the setting. This is what typically would be expected. Did it meet expectations or not? Catherine, you had your hand up.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, from a marketing perspective, the idea of like shifting different places and like not places, different products in different places. Like every time you walk in the store is just so you can take a look at all the things that they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that is interesting, because if you're like a customer that goes all the time, you are going to notice that all of a sudden, oh, they change women's clothes from one place to the other.
But what do you have to do in the process? You make those changes, then what do you have to do? You have to observe your customers to see if they actually are noticing, or if you're getting a lot of, where is everything? They moved it all around. Because the more you do that, the more you're going to lose your customers. If they're frustrated, they're not coming back. So it's a constant game. Okay, good point. You're observing conversation. What are they talking about? Are they getting excited while they're talking about it? Are we talking about just benign, nonsensical stuff? Are we talking about really important matters? As journalists, one of the things that we train our students to do is go be around the coffee shops. Go be in the community to see what people are talking about. Because if people are talking about it, obviously they want to know more, or they're interested in it. So therefore, that's where we get our story ideas, to go out and say, okay, they want to know more about this, or people are talking about it. They have some interest here. So let's do some research, and let's give the people what they want. All right? I mean, as much as we want to say and be idealistic that the news media is there to inform us, the news media is a business, and they have to have readers, they have to have viewers, they have to have listeners. How do you do that? You give the people the information that they want, and then they'll watch, listen, and read, and then advertisers will see that, and they'll put money into it, which you may not like it, but if they don't put the money into it, then the news media goes away, and you don't have anything to inform us with anyway. So that's something you have to think about. You also look for subtle factors like unplanned activities, nonverbals, and what does not happen. So you may be doing a study on educational trends, and You go to several school board meetings as they're maybe implementing a new curriculum, all right? And you may find out, unplanned activities, maybe it gets brought up and somebody gets on the school board gets really animated and really anxious about it, really excited about it, really angry about it. That wasn't necessarily planned. So you're seeing that this one person's getting really up in arms and everybody else is pretty calm about it, pretty mellow about it. You're looking obviously at nonverbals, we've talked about that quite a bit. You're also looking at what does not happen. So, for example, we may be talking about this school board and we may have been out in the community and observing and listening to conversations and listening to people complain about the school board and this new curriculum they're going to implement or they're voting to implement. And you're thinking, okay, well, if they're up in arms about it, the school board's going to be talking about it. There's a good chance there could be a lot of protesters out there. A lot of people coming to the school board meeting to say they don't like it and voice their opinions on the matter, say what they'd rather have, and then you go to the meeting and there is nobody there. No protest, no observers from the community, nobody to speak out against it. So what's going on here? Why is that? Okay. So you're observing that people maybe like to complain, but they don't want to do anything about it.
Or they don't know how.
Or they don't know how. But that's the kind of thing you're trying to observe and trying to figure out. Okay. There again, there comes in the subjectivity. I look at it and say, well, they just don't care. Rachel may look at the same situation and say, well, they didn't know how to do anything about it. So then we need to look at it and say, do we need to inform them of the process? Do we need to inform them that these are open meetings? Where do we go from here? Okay. You also observe your own behavior. Why is that important? Why is it important to observe your own behavior, Leah?
So that you don't have, so that you are aware of your bias, your potential bias, and influence on the environment.
My first reaction when I went over is, nobody's talking. That's such a shame. I realized going in, if I'm doing this study, that I'm going with the preconceived notion that they're not communicating. Oh, wait a minute. Can't go in there thinking that way because then I'm right off the bat going to be ticked off and irritated and I'm not going to be as clear-headed and really observe. I've already gone in with bias. I need to be thinking about maybe they are. Maybe it's just a different process. I got my sushi, I walked through and I left and I watched the whole time I was through. So that may have been the, 2 minutes it took me from the walk to the stairs to the exit. Maybe after I walked out, everybody dropped their phone. So anyway, and the place got like, maybe it was just me. They were intimidated. Okay. So you need to be observing this as well. All right. A little more in depth on the observer and the observed relationship. We talked about the three kinds. Participant observer, observer, going native and all of that. Okay, starting at the bottom, the complete observer. Again, you're just on the periphery. You're not involved at all. You don't interact, you don't respond, you don't help them with meet their goals or their objectives. You're just there and you're writing things down. They don't even notice. A couple of you said that when you were doing your observation, a friend of yours came up, sat and talked to you. I don't remember who that was that said that, but what did it do? That student's probably not even here today. Is anybody in here? Did somebody one of your friends come up? Yulia?
Yeah, one of my coworkers up in the newsroom, and she didn't say hi. She saw I was like writing something. I think she noticed that I was trying to work on something, so she just like waved and passed by me, but she didn't talk to me.
Okay.
So.
Might have been John or Kiefer. Said a friend sat down and talked to him. Did you tell him you have to leave? You were trying to do an observation assignment. Yeah, but you're just, with this one, you're just completely hidden from view. We think about, when I teach photojournalism, we talk about one of the ways to be a good photojournalist is to just disappear into the shadows. And a couple of people may notice you and that's kind of creepy. But that's one way to do it, so you can really get, because especially when you're working with kids, what happens when a kid sees a camera?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you want to take it? Or?
You want to stick.
Yeah.
Not really. Since you want it. There's the observer as participant. And that's where you are an observer, they're aware you're observing, but you're just kind of on the periphery. This is the one I'm talking about where you're in the classroom and the kids come up and ask you to help them with something. You say, I'm sorry, I'm just here to observe, and you don't get involved with them. Okay. The participant as an observer is the one who says, okay, yeah, here, give me 5 minutes, and then we're gonna come play this game together. So you're observing for a while, and then you get involved with them. And then the complete participant. You are fully immersed into the culture. It can be going native, where they don't have a clue who you are, but you're into the environment. And don't get confused that, you know, they don't know who you are. They don't know who you are here either. But here you're not interacting. You're just watching. Think with this complete observer is during a focus group. You're behind the one-sided glass. Okay. Here you're actually in the focus group, but you're there to observe and take notes.
So when we did our observation, were we complete observers or observer as participants? Because we weren't hidden from view, or I wasn't. I was sitting right out there.
You were probably more here, because if somebody came up and talked to you, they could see what you were doing. You were somewhere between these two. This isn't necessarily hidden from view, because a lot of times, I mean, if you notice there's a red pen sitting up here. It's in plain sight, but you didn't notice it. Okay. So it can be totally hidden, but that's kind of creepy. It can just be you're hidden in the wide open. You just don't know you're doing anything. Okay. This one here, you're why are you in this first grade classroom? You're not our teacher, you're not our sub. Obviously you're doing something. Okay. And then this one, you're either native and they don't know you're observing or writing or researching, or they do, but you're still taking part in all the activities and stuff.
My observation, kind of native.
Kind of native? Yeah, yours would have been native. Because you went to a conference, right?
Right.
Nobody knew you were doing observation or anything?
No. In fact, I was on a couple of times I was on my cell phone, but it was on record, and I was talking into it about the observation, so I
Really?
could take notes. People thought I was on my cell phone. Because everyone was.
So was everybody over in the union on their phones talking about me.
But it was during breaks, if you remember, mine was
Yeah.
during breaks and social events. Everyone was on their phone because they come out of a session, first thing they do is check their voicemails, make follow-up calls, so I just played along. But I was
These
taking
guys are over
notes.
here talking in the corner. And they're all on their phones going, some guy's talking into his phone, he's not talking to anyone.
Multiple personality disorder.
Well, the other thing that we wanted to talk about a little bit was field notes, and I'm not gonna tell you how to take field notes. Field notes are a very personal thing. You take field notes the way it works for you. Now, I was really fascinated by the maps that you all took. Catherine, I think you took pictures, didn't you? Yeah, Catherine took pictures of the surroundings so she could remember where people were, and then drew a map in addition to that. Some people, the one place where people got dinged, I mean, I looked at your grammar and your spelling and things like that, but I asked in the assignment for you to identify the settings, the subsettings, the characters, or the actors, the processes and all that. And you did, but I want you to get used to using the terminology, so I meant for you to use that terminology.
That's probably right.
So,
I didn't do it.
but it was 2 points, 3 points, nothing.
That would
major,
explain
so,
it. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Now I'm enlightened.
I would think I didn't make that very clear, but about more than half the class did it. So,
That's understandable.
but some people actually wrote those headers, characters or actors, and then they listed them, and then setting, and they list, you know, and so then they were listed out like that. Was it you, Aaron, did things like time code?
Yeah, I did sections and time codes as far as, because I didn't draw out a map, so I was on the second floor over at the library. And so I was like, group 1 was my front left table in the middle section. Group 2 was back from them. Group 3 was up front. Group 4 was in the back. Group 5 was a group that came through like 5 times talking loud. So I had like, and then I set times of when they came through or when they did something for each.
Did you observe anything about yourself when you were doing yours? I mean, thinking back to this, you observed your own behavior in your own self.
No.
I observed something about you just in reading your paper.
What was that?
You were getting really pissed.
About what?
He did his in the library, and I guess the students who were in the library were, in the library, what is it supposed to be? Quiet.
On the second floor?
And it's in a library,
Sure.
anywhere in a library, even in a place where you can talk and be, you still ought to be quiet in a library. People are trying to study or read or research or whatever. And they were getting louder and louder. I think they started playing baseball at one point.
Oh, they were,
What?
oh yeah.
What?
They were.
The guy was juggling
Okay, that's
wadded up
fine.
ball, paper balls and stuff like that. And I could tell in reading yours, and like, okay, Aaron's old school. Aaron's serious about his education. He's getting ticked.
Well, it was, you know, at first it was all fine, and then I was just like, wow, this is.
But that's the kind of thing you need to observe about your own behavior. You need to recognize, okay, I'm really starting to get irritated here. I'm really starting to get angry. I need to dial it down, push that aside, and focus on the task at hand, because I need to be able to focus on what's happening.
Yeah.
And if my blood's starting to boil, I can't focus. So you either back up, leave, come back another time, put it aside, change your positioning. When I did my observation, the thing that I observed is, about myself, is I went to McDonald's and did it. And I thought, okay, well, the way to do this, you know, you go to the quiet place. I went over to the corner, and I sat in the corner booth, and I just kind of watched where everything was going on. And I wanted to be able to kind of listen to some of the conversations and things like that. And what I did not observe was the TV that was sitting right over my head with the volume on. I didn't hear anything but CNN in the morning, so I had no idea what was going on. But it did force me to really observe nonverbals, observe how people interacted with one another. I had to just refocus and turn over here and watch what was happening in the kitchen and in the serving area and trying to keep track of that. One of the other things I hope you got from this exercise, and several of you pointed this out, go in with a plan. What is it you want to observe? Are you just going to this spot and see, okay, what happens? Or are you going to go in and say, I want to observe how people interact with one another. I want to observe, are people more friendly than later in the day? I did a little mini observation the other day. I went into Casey's, and in the morning in Casey's, you know, people are coming through and they're getting their cup of coffee, and they're getting their donut. Well, before they're getting their coffee. They haven't had their coffee yet. So what happens?
Grouchy City.
Hi, welcome to Casey's. Thank you. Would you like to donate an dollar? No. Is that going to be cash or charge? Cash. And then you come in after work. It's like, hey, how are you? You have a good day? And the Casey's guy's fine. You know, the different ways that people act and interact, and you know, the different times of the day. But you go in the same spot. Well, that's going to require. I'm not going to go sit in Casey's all day and just walk up and down the aisles. That's going to take me 2 minutes. So you just kind of think about different times you can go in, okay? You like that, Leah?
I have a question.
Yes.
When you're reporting something, like, okay, a journalist should also observe, not just do a story, but just observe the surroundings in the heat of a moment. The one that comes to mind, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the only thing I'm focusing on, but like the reporters in Ferguson, when stuff was going on, their blood can start to boil too, and they can get, they can let their emotions get away with them, and wouldn't that affect what they report, what they focus on, and that ends up messing with their framing of their story?
Yep.
So
That's why
trained professionals should be the ones in there, right? Like people who know, who they're aware of.
you're not going to
their-
send a cub reporter to cover something like Ferguson.
Right, you would need somebody who's aware of their emotions before they could go before.
Yeah, because you need to know, you're going to be emotional. It's going to happen. I'm not very good at it, I'll be honest with you. I'm a pretty emotional person. And I get either moved very easily by things or get very angry about things. And I have to constantly be aware of my emotions. You know, when we had the Rodney King party came down and we had the riots on campus, you know, I went over, all of our African American students were gathered and they were having a rally. And you know, I got very emotional and was ashamed to be a white man. can't help it, that's who I am, you know, that's how I was born. I was born white. There was anything I could do about it, but I was very ashamed of it and felt like I needed to go apologize. Well, I didn't have anything to do with the Rodney King verdict. You know, so, yeah, you have to think about those types of things and think about your own biases and if you're becoming emotional about it and how you're reacting to it. Think about it too, even when you're just doing in-depth interviews, you need to use observation skills because that's a great way to develop rapport. You know, if you were going to go in to interview somebody and you noticed, you know, maybe they had a poster of Zorro and they had pictures of their kids at Disney World and they're doing Star Wars, you know, doing the Star Wars game. They got to go up there and duel. And do you like sword fighting? Are you in this sport? And you can tie that in and make that connection, and right away that person's drawn in there. Oh, we're speaking the same language, okay?
Yeah.
You get a pretty good interview out of that. I think I've told this class about when we first moved to Warrensburg and my wife going for her job interview. Was able to make that connection. Okay, those kinds of things can really help. But you also, again, are wanting to observe that person's reactions. Are they hesitant to answer questions? Are they? And one of the reasons, probably, I'm not going to speak for who teaches interpersonal, but one of the reasons they may teach about this and this is, you know, that's been preached to us so much that it's lying thinking. Be aware that if you do that, others may not know the research and may think, oh, they looked up to the left, they're lying about it. So be aware of that yourself so you don't do it. Okay? But those are the kinds of things you need to be keeping an eye on.
This may not be pertinent, but my wife and I are big Voice fans. And
Big what?
Voice, love the Voice. Anyway, there's
The Voice.
The Voice, yeah. There was a participant or contestant that's saying, and he's active duty Army, came from West Point. Anyway, Pharrell and Christina both turned for him, and they both wanted it. Pharrell made his argument, and his argument was really solid because he was an R&B singer and a bluesy kind of guy, and he was talking about all of his skills and abilities to make it. And then Christina started talking and said, they all thanked him for his service and stuff, but then Christina said, I'm the daughter of a sergeant in the Army, so I know all that you've been through. And then my wife said, oh, he's going to pick Pharrell. And I said, no, he's going to pick Christina. And he picked Christina. And she said, how did you know he's going to do that? I said, he said his dad served for 30 years, his grandfather served for 26, and he's serving. And then Christina tied into that.
Made the dad connection.
Made that connection with, her dad being in service. And that really matters oftentimes. Not every vet, but it matters to veterans. And she's like, wow, I never even made that connection. And so that's,
Yeah, part of observing is listening to
Yeah.
the things they say, because if you're dialed in on your questions, you may miss in observing their response to a question, and you don't follow along. You go off in another tangent. Okay. Now keep in mind that observation is not a research method. It's not ethnography, not phenomenology, not ground data. It's not a research method. It is a data collection method. It's one of the ways we gather our information, either so we can conduct our interviews or it's tied in with our reporting. Okay? But again, do keep in mind that it is considered by critics to be subjective. So it's all qualitative research because we're interpreting, and we're interpreting through our experiences and our lens. Okay?